Good afternoon. This is Evan Stahl coming to you today with our Module 2 reflection uh, PowerPoint presentation. And we're going over what we learned in Module 2, some of the takeaways and stuff like that. And throughout this, we'll be just going over that and hitting some of those items. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the objectives for this will be things I kind of learned. Some things I wanted to highlight were the Berlo communication model. Thought that was something that really stuck out to me. We'll go over the Jocko video, the two videos that were attached to the module plan, and the Tom Peter video. And then we will go into identifying the listening blocks. So something that kind of I looked at and kind of looked back and took reflection on myself and some things that I noticed that I have issues with. And those two ones that I saw majorly were the rehearing and the filtering. And then we'll finish it off with the near peer feedback, just asking some people kind of some feedback on my type of listening styles and how I contribute to their development and growth and stuff like that. So we'll get to that at the end. So moving on, some things learned. So I did a little bit more digging on top of what we read in our required reading for this week, and came across some things I found. So this Berlo, the SMCR model, and the summary basically says it builds on source, a medium, a channel, and a receiver. So the source is your communication skills, your attitude you have when you're communicating whatever you have to communicate, the knowledge you have on it, the social system, and the culture. So kind of the spectrum or who you're presenting your information to. The medium is obviously what you're delivering, so the content, the elements of what you're bringing, treatment, structure, and code that kind of goes all into really the area or the culture, kind of how you're communicating. This kind of all play together. Your channel, so how people are interpreting and hearing you. How seeing is how you're presenting it, which kind of the nonverbal cues you give out. Touching, smelling, and tasting. That's kind of a little extra, but just it's how you were delivering your message. And then the receiver, the last part of this is who's receiving your message. So how your skills of communicating, how they perceive your attitude and their attitude when they take in the information, their prior knowledge to what you're briefing about. And then the social system and culture, once again, it kind of feeds back into the original source. What you're presenting, is it matched to the culture, what you're trying to get at, work-wise, stuff like that. Just like I said, so the source and the receiver kind of go hand in hand. Yeah, and so this is just kind of some things. I really, Berlo's kind of stuck out to me just because of I equivalence that to being in the military, and kind of how we strategically communicate with one another. And all of those things really play a factor in how messages are bringing from the top down, and how they're kind of, I wouldn't want to say sold, but how marching orders are given, and how we strategically communicate those orders and make so everyone understands the who, what, when, where, why, and not just because we're military and we're told to do something. That kind of just drives home that point of why we do the things we do. Okay, so moving on. So things learned. This is from the Jocko Willink video. Some big things I took away from that was the 98% listen, 2% talk. Talk less, listen more. That was a big thing. Just hearing people, not interrupting, and letting them get whatever they had to say out. Like he said in the video, is once you know kind of the full picture of everything going on, it helps you better collect the data that you need to give back the answer that needs to be given, and not just assuming or jumping to a conclusion or judgment on what they want to hear or what you want to have happen or hear. Let them talk. Is a big thing. So it kind of feeds into that the listen more, talk less. If someone interrupts you, or you're having a debate or a conversation about something, let them get out whatever they need to say. It kind of feeds back into that, so you know everything that's being brought out, and that way you can digest and critically think about that scenario and that information in order to give the best answer at the time. And then care about your people. This kind of ties back into a leadership aspect of adaptive leadership. Just showing that you care about people will help them open up more and trust in you as a leader in order to make the right decisions moving forward. Just a quick quote I found doing some research on this. And any leadership situation is critical for the leaders to keep everyone on the team as informed as possible. When the team members don't know where they are, where they are going, or how much longer they must go to reach an objective, they are lost. When people are lost, they don't know where to move. They don't understand how the efforts impact the strategic mission and no longer effectively do their jobs. That was actually something else that Jocko had said in an interview that he did. I thought was super important. And yeah, that was more geared towards military, but you can just interchange words and take that message and use it in a corporation or an organization outside the military. It goes both ways, but it's huge. Just making sure everyone has the information and facts about what's going on. And then the Tom Peer thing, something that I took away from that was his big thing was the 18-second manager. When he was talking about the experience with the doctors and within 18 seconds kind of jumping to an answer for their patients. And then he mentioned the 18-second manager, the same kind of thing. After 18 seconds, they kind of just jump in. So that was a big thing, and that's something going forward I know maybe I have done before. Just within a conversation, trying to find the answer right off the bat instead of collecting all the facts first. Committed to strategic listening. I thought that was huge. Connecting listening priorities or prioritizes concern. Kind of goes back into Jocko's listen less or listen more, talk less. The same thing, just that strategic listening, reflective listening, or expertise, depth, and meaning. And an analytic listen for facts, data, and measurable data. So just collecting all that information. And then conceptual listening, so brainstorming and generating ideas. That's kind of one at the end of the conversation when everything is out, then taking everything that you have and taking data if there was data or just anything like that, and taking all those into account before you make a decision moving forward. Just some identified listening blocks that I caught myself doing. Two major ones here is mind reading. Then it means you're not paying attention to the whole conversation. Look for subtle clues, like you're looking already kind of pre-scanning the conversation out and looking for subtle clues to where you think you can give an answer, and it kind of ties into making assumptions. You assume where the conversation is going instead of letting it play out. And then filtering, listening to some stuff, not all. Looking for emotions and reactions, so you're kind of judging the conversation of how you're going to handle it depending on how the person you're receiving the message from, their emotional state that they're in. And then just avoiding altogether, especially if you're not confrontational or anything like that, you try to avoid those conversations. So those things I notice I've done from time to time, and things I try to look for and try to make better at. And then the last part is the near peer feedback. So I had positive and improvement areas that I could that I was told about. So genuine. So I'm just try to be a genuine person and understand everyone and try to make the best decision for them. Emotional, I know I let my emotions sometimes out, which is down there in improvement areas too, because it's a double-edged sword. It's good to show emotions, but at the same time, it's not good because sometimes people don't need to see emotions; they just want to see actions. So it's a good and a bad. So that's why they're in both areas there. Engaged, I always want to show everyone that I represent or work for or work under me that I'm engaged with them, and I want them to do the best and the team to do the best. Optimistic, I know especially in the military, not every situation is always the best, so always trying to keep an optimistic and positive mindset really helps bring up the team too. Improvement areas, interrupting, like I said, that was kind of identified in the last slide too, but just letting conversations happen instead of trying to just find the answer right away. And then comparing, so hearing people's problems and trying to compare them to and give them stories of something I've gone through. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's not a very good thing. It's just letting people have their moment to get out what they need to get out. They're not trying to compare yourself to every problem they have. And here are the references I used throughout this. And yeah, so thank you for listening, and move on to the next one.